We'll cut off the first 30 seconds anyway, because we'll just be checking things are working.
We might have broken it all again, guys, but it might be live. I hope I pressed the right button.
I think you did. Right.
Whoa.
Hooray.
Perfecte.
Guys, welcome to Flight Sim Weekly. Welcome to Flight Sim Weekly. I hope you are well.
I thought that was going to be the actual intro.
I thought that was going to be the actual intro as well. And then I
Okay.
completely messed it up. Right.
All right, try again then. Roll the tape back.
We needed a jingle as well.
Yeah.
We've abandoned the jingle. Oh. Right. You ready?
Yeah,
We
go.
might actually do a decent intro. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Flight Sim Weekly. Today, we have got Delaney from Origami Studios with us. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to be talking about piracy and flight simulation. We're going to be talking about the future of development, and also about a bit of the backstory about what gets people into developing for flight sim. Also going to be talking about the Flight Factor 787, Flight Sim Expo, the Orbex roadmap, and then Tom has a few words to say about that sim across the pond. But
Well, we'll see when we get there. But first of all, we're going to be talking to Delaney. So first of all, thank you very much for coming on. It's great to have guests who are interested to speak to us. So
Pleasure,
thank you very
man,
much. So at the moment, your main focus is Origami Studios. So what is Origami Studios for people who haven't heard of it?
So Origami Studios is kind of the developer name that I go for, I guess, myself. We kind of explore different products in X-Plane. So we do aircraft. So our aircraft at the moment is the Scottish Aviation Bulldog. And the other part of it that we're just getting into recently is scenery. And we just came out with Gatwick Airport for X-Plane 11. Both of which are available on AnyBuild if you guys want to go check it out. Shameless plug, but
no, it's absolutely fine.
No,
So,
plugging is fine.
We plug all the time.
Yeah. So when you say, does that mean it's just you with Origami, or do you have anyone else in the team?
No, not necessarily. So for the scenery side, it's 99% myself. But for the aircraft, I do have a partner. His name is Dan. Most of you will know his face as the developer of Sim Toolkit Pro. And I'm probably going to just take a minute out, but literally Dan is probably one of the most dedicated and like awesome, wholesome kind of members in the community. He's just been a really
long
good friend,
suffering.
Well,
he is.
His words, not mine.
Yeah, I do like him. I do respect the guy. He especially with Sim Toolkit Pro, I didn't know he developed aircraft as well, but yeah, it's amazing how much feedback he takes and how quickly and effectively he works on his stuff.
Yeah, he just lives on the diet of Monster energy drink.
Yeah. So Origami Gatwick was the latest the latest scenery. Is it the first scenery you've ever done?
This is where you can tell Tom doesn't do that.
Actually, that started about, I want to say about 3 years ago.
Wow.
I know it seems like a long time.
Yeah.
Basically the project's just been like picked up and like different techniques going over and over again. So it was restarted about, I want to say about 3 times.
Yeah.
Whilst I was trying to like get into X-Plane, learn out, get a feel for the tools, what I can and can't get away with. And it was only until I want to say October or November last year, after the Bulldog, where a longtime friend of mine, Jedi, he said, "Look, you have this Gatwick sitting here. It's pretty. Why don't you just finish it?" And I took that challenge.
Yeah, and you're lucky you did, because it looks fantastic.
It is fantastic. Anyone who watches my streams knows that I I control Gary purely to use the scenery. It is honestly so nice. But what I will say, what was your main motivation into getting into scenery development? What got you into it in the first place?
I mean, there's two parts to that. One is it kind of explores the sort of designer side of me. I'm kind of familiar with that type of background, just buildings and architecture and stuff. The other, I guess, is something of an inquisitive nature, because it's not often like we fly sceneries and two sceneries, and like we fly aircraft. We don't actually spend time to consider what how do I make this come to life, so to say. There is a lot of thought and planning and
Yeah.
production that goes behind some of these that people don't necessarily see. And I was really curious as to how that can be done. Now, with Xplane, you have this incredible platform where it's just quite open and accessible to people, that you can just literally tinker away with like a simple text file, and you can create something amazing. So that really got my gears going and saying, okay, how can we push this? What can I do in here? So at the time, 3 years ago, I think it was I had both the Pilot Plus and the UK 2000 Gatwick, and I wanted I don't want to plug on developers, but I wanted a more accurate rendition of it. So
Yeah.
I just experimented with the sim and seeing what I could make, and lo and behold, Origami Gatwick is made.
That's excellent. Yeah, good choice. Gatwick is one of my favorites. So you speak about the really extensive development process. So I assume you can't just say, okay, I want to develop Gatwick. You just jump in and make it overnight. What's the first thing you have to consider when you're making a scenery? Is it looking at a bunch of pictures, or kind of drawing it out, or how do you start the process?
Yeah, definitely reference imagery. So before you can do that, you have to say, right, do I have enough data on this to actually go and make this airport? So in terms of
Yeah.
that, I need some sort of GIS or 2D data. So it might be in the form of Google Maps or something. You might be more advanced and have actual CAD data for that airport, where you can go and place objects and get the actual plan of the airport. Right. The other part is also gathering reference photography for the airport. So when I started Gatwick 3 years ago, if you go onto Google Maps now, you'll see 3D imagery of Gatwick, and you can just go and have a little play around with that. I didn't have that 3 years ago. I had to basically sit there with a bunch of photos and try and calculate all the dimensions, all the elevations and such, to the best of my ability. So
Right. And then I guess going one stage back from that, aside from um, having the right data available, how do you decide what airport you want to do? Did you just think, I just like Gatwick, or is there any other?
Yeah,
Is
pretty
there anything
much.
complicated to it?
It was literally
Yeah,
like, I just want to do Gatwick.
fair enough. To be honest, yeah, go with what you want to do. Makes
I do
sense.
what I please.
Yeah. Um. Got yeah.
I can't even get my audio working properly. I had a slight interruption from my father again, who still hasn't figured out when I say, "This is my recording time. Please leave me alone." Anyway, we're talking about just before your architectural influence on scenery.
Mhm.
Do you think your interest in architecture brings out better scenery? How do you think it influences your development?
Um, that's an interesting question. Actually, I've not been asked that. It brings out some of the, I guess, designer tendencies in me. Like, oh, I know how tall this building is, or I know what kind of material this is, or the thickness. I think it helps to shape that scenery to be a little bit more accurate in some aspects, and maybe a little bit more detailed. Um, and also trying to break down a building. It's kind of like a huge jigsaw puzzle. You ever looked at Gatwick? It's a myriad of different architectural styles and like additions attached to each other. So having to figure that out from 2D plans and like really crude reference imagery, it becomes really interesting. Like, oh, this is connected to this. This might have been attached at this date. Structurally there has to be like a pillar here, so that makes more sense to the user. So it's kind of working out this giant puzzle, so to say. That's really really cool.
Yeah.
And do you feel new data, so like Microsoft Flight Simulator uses photogrammetry data to
Mhm.
help construct its buildings. Do you think this might help in scenery development in the future?
Who knows? I don't know if you can get like a drone and like photo across the airport. You might be in a bit
Gatwick
of
and
trouble.
drones.
But yeah, who knows in future? Maybe we're looking at a future where the entire Earth is captured via drones, and we have like one-to-one scenery, and we don't even need like scenery developers anymore. It's just there. You click your fingers and snap, you go to the airport. That would be a crazy future. And yeah, Gatwick and trains is a huge no. I think, given the technical feats of Microsoft Flight Simulator, it certainly is a right push in that direction in terms of getting the scenery realism. It's good from a course kind of perspective. You still need that kind of creative touch to it, and I think you still will for many years to come.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an improvement over what we've had over the past 20 years. Sorry. Um,
Yeah.
So, speaking of Microsoft Flight Simulator, do you think in the future, I know you use X-Plane as your platform of choice for now, but do you
mm.
think the new simulator has new features that may help in scenery development in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a really big fan of Explain, of course. I know people on the development team, I know developers, I know people in the community, yada yada. Um, that being said, from a developer perspective, you kind of have to be naive to not recognize some of the achievements of another competing platform. Um, because that's how we improve at the end of the day. We just take a look at ourselves and say, okay, what can we do to just push this further? In the case of Microsoft Flight Simulator, the photogrammetry is really good. Some of the scenery tools are really good. It's mostly shader based, uh, and then when you dive deep into it, there's a lot of tricks that they use to try and keep the performance as low as possible. And I'm
As low
seeing
as
people
possible.
now, yeah, I, I'm seeing people now abuse those tools and tricks, and they're producing this crazy, ridiculous scenery. I'm talking about scenery that has like fully blown custom interiors that you just would be
Yeah.
really difficult to pull off and explain. I think there's two people that come to mind actually. There's Piri. I don't know if I'm butchering his name. Pirigui from Orbex. He does like Ukrainian airports, and he did Odessa recently. And if you look at the airport, it's the terminal is insane. It's like accurate kind of CAD data. The interiors are all there. It just looks so damn good. And I think the other one is NZA Australia or NZA Scenes, something like that. And they do like small regional Australian airports in Microsoft Flight Sim, and they look fantastic as well. So we're certainly seeing the tools in Microsoft Flight Simulator push that kind of content to a whole new level, which is really, really exciting.
But one thing we were also discussing last week with Fly by Wire. I can't speak today, honestly. It's embarrassing. But anyway, one thing we were discussing was how there's been a lot more freeware common in the Flight Sim 2020 community. Do you
hmm
think this? Do you think it's because of the ease of development? What do you think is driving this big push towards freeware development compared to what we've seen previously?
Um, I think people wanted to see their own airports for one. I think that's kind of the cool factor. It's like let's get our local in there. But
Yeah.
the tools have become a lot more accessible, and we're also seeing a lot more freeware showstopper projects, right? I mean, let's take a look at the Zebo, for example. That's a precedent in itself. You make a whole near, I'm cautious to use the word study level because that's controversial to some people, but
Yeah.
extremely detailed aircraft for free, you know? And then once you set that precedent, it's like, okay, let's try and replicate this. So now you have fly by wire. Now you have several teams trying to do the same thing. Sorry, you have Level Up coming up with their 737 series. So it's it's definitely pushing um, more people to explore these projects, and also pushing payware developers to up the game a bit, which is pretty cool to see.
Do you think
Yeah.
Asobo's willingness to improve the because Fly by Wire was talking about this, and I know you haven't necessarily had all of that much experience developing with Sim, but do you think Asobo's willingness to improve the tools will also help in terms of getting developers into the Sim?
Um, I I'm not entirely sure because I've not personally dwelled too much time into the tools. I have touched a little bit into those. From what I've heard from people or developers in the community, it's kind of like a mixed bag. So I've heard people say the tools are really, really cool. These are, quite refreshing. They enable us to do a lot more creative things. And then I hear a lot of people, like comment on I guess the flight model or certain aspects of the scenery tools that say like this isn't up to par. It's quite limiting to what we've had in the past. So I couldn't say for sure. I'm not an expert on the modding tool abilities of or the SDK of Flight Sim 2020.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So what's going forward now that you've finished Gatwick? What are your future plans for? Well, I presume X-Plane, or are you looking anywhere else to add more products to your collection?
Yeah, there will certainly be more stuff from Origami. I know one of them will be an update to the Bulldog. So me and Dan are currently working away at that. So we've got some new modeling coming up, some brand new features, which are going to be, I think, really cool. Some new sounds as well. Um,
Excellent.
yeah, so I think there'll be a few surprises for people. It's going to be fun.
Good.
What's been the most exciting thing you've had to develop, would you say? What's
Most,
been the most challenging, exciting thing you've had the opportunity to develop?
I think it would be the Bulldog. It kind of stemmed from the whole lockdown COVID situation, and me and Dan just going, what would we love to make really? And started the modeling, and like 2 weeks later, lo and behold, we're working on a Bulldog, and having to really do like a thorough breakdown of X-Plane's SDK and say, okay, what do we need? We have to do this. We need this. You're trying to work through our mistakes was pretty difficult, I'd say, um, and an interesting learning curve as well. And it makes you appreciate other products a lot more as well, because we're just getting into this. So imagine what what the others have to deal with. So, and to make their aircraft work. So yeah, it's the Bulldog's probably been the most rewarding experience out of all of them.
Yeah, interesting to hear that you just start it and then it just comes into a product, like you say. You just made the model and then you just decided that you're going to make it a plane. Have you had any other projects that you've started and then been like, this kind of not as interesting as I thought it was going to be, and left it? I mean,
Oh,
can't all
ton.
be success. So you've started a lot of models.
I am the world's worst procrastinator.
Aren't we
So,
all? Yeah.
yeah. So there's certainly quite a few that have been picked up and dropped on the table, but I think they will stay in my
Yeah.
folder for now.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Are there any
Um,
plans to for stuff with existing products like Gatwick? Is there any plans to add additional stuff to Gatwick?
Yeah, I think we'll see some more of Gatwick in the future. I can't see anything yet, but there are aspects of Gatwick that I do want to improve, and as I kind of learn from like new techniques from other sceneries, I think Mr. Rex's stuff is a good example of like trying to push your content a little bit further and like making it more detailed. So yeah,
yeah.
I think we'll see some more stuff from Gatwick.
Well, that's good. I think I don't want to say this if I'm wrong, but I think Gatwick's extending Pier 6 possibly. So
Yeah, so they're doing an extension on for EasyJet and because as a consequence of that, they've just moved the A380 over to, I think it's Pier 5. I think it's stand 558, which is newly
Yeah,
built. So would have to get that updated at some point. I've had feedback from other people as well saying, "Oh, I want this addition. Um, like I want cranes here. I want this building in. I want
sure,
beehive." So there's a lot to consider and take in. I guess no guarantees, but you never know what the future holds.
sure. Do you act well, how helpful is it to have people who I don't know, point out things that they'd like to see in the scenery? Because I imagine there's some things that you maybe overlooked or didn't notice the first time you went through it. Do you get comments often from people suggesting things to add, or perhaps from pilots or ground staff, things that similar to that? Sorry, that was an awfully worded question, but I hope you.
26 right comes to mind, to be honest.
Oh, that's yeah. Oh, that's a bit of a touchy one. I have fixed that, by the way. So the issue being 08 left and 26 right didn't work with the Tollus. So that will be in an upcoming patch. But yes, I do get some good commentary with from I've got a pilot
Sure.
actually from Gatwick who feeds me information. Most of the time, it's really constructive. So by all means, if you want to see something different, just pop it in Discord or something, and again, I can't promise I'll get round to it, but
Yeah.
I believe in trying to improve it to the best of
Yeah.
your ability.
Obviously, there's only 24 hours in a day, but
Yeah,
good
and I
to.
need sleep for at least a
Yeah.
good half.
Yeah. Sleep is argued to be quite important. Um, I just seen an interesting question on the form. Someone asked, uh, I'm not sure if this will be a complicated question, but are there any Easter eggs in your scenery?
No. In the Bulldog there is, or about to be upcoming.
Okay.
I did consider an Easter egg, but I don't think it would
Yeah.
have been taken the
I mean,
right
it's
way.
not particularly important for most people.
No.
What's that aircraft that you can turn into a carrot? I'm trying to remember. People didn't
Oh,
really
the
like that
X
one.
crafts. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I think Easter eggs are done well when they're kind of like slightly tasteful and not in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And especially if it
So what
doesn't
would you say is
take
the
away
best
from the plane.
idea for an Easter
The
egg,
best.
or are you saving it? What's the best Easter
What,
egg you've seen so far, even? I guess would probably be better.
that's a good question. I'd say there's one in the Flagy sim that I don't think a lot of people have clocked onto. Because we like to have fun with the planes and just pop
Okay.
little things in. Oh no, actually, there is one. I think in the TBM, there is actually a lightsaber. If some people haven't picked that up, so have a look in one of the
Nice.
cargo holds.
Um, Another question. Are you considering asking about future scenery from Origami? Are you looking strictly at European airports, or do you perhaps see North America, Oceania, Asia, anywhere else in the world where you could be developing?
So after Gatwick, I basically built out a list with a couple of friends, and the list contains pretty much airports from almost every single continent.
Oh
So
wow,
it's like an interest list, but we never know where you could go. Again, there's only so
sure,
many so much time in the day.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So no particular connection to Europe. You'll kind of do wherever you fancy.
No, again, like stuff that interests me, particularly architecturally, or something I can have a good challenge with, is what interests me particularly, and also scenery that X-Plane doesn't particularly have yet. So
Sure,
there's a lot of potential there, I think, and there's 24,000 airports plus in the world.
yeah,
There's bound to be something new every time.
yeah. Have you done any modeling or texturing or otherwise development outside of X-Plane or outside of flight sim in general, or do you just do flight sim?
Yes, I'm gonna leave that one
Okay,
tips.
that's fine. No
I
worries.
don't particularly just delve into my personal information. So
No, that's fine. That's
yeah,
absolutely fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to talking about what we wanted to talk about this week, which was a scenery developer called WF Scenery Studio, who announced they're going to
Mhm,
suspend their development following the release of Shanghai because they were losing too much revenue due to people pirating their products. And I think it's something that happens, or at least I feel like it happens more in flight sim, and it's more not spoken about, but almost like a kind of air around flight sim that
Hmm.
piracy is more common, which is quite disappointing. So I imagine it must be quite damaging for developers who make these fantastic projects, and they're not even asking huge amounts for them, that
mhm,
people take them so much in flight sim. It feels like it's a flight sim thing, which is disappointing because it's literally driving developers out and forcing other people to pay higher prices to
mhm.
offset the lost revenue from people who do pirate. So,
Mhm.
what's a good question? What's your take on piracy in flight sim? I guess coming as
Yeah,
a developer,
I think in the terms of WF scenery, I love some of their products. When I looked
yeah,
at Shenzhen, I was like, how in the world did they kind of pull that scenery off? So they are extremely talented individuals, and
yeah,
to hear that that work is not being respected is Eh, yeah, I can emphasize with that a lot,
yeah,
especially in kind of like personal troubles. Because when you're developing scenery or aircraft, you're spending in the 4 or 5 figures just trying to get these products out, and to have it kind of
yeah,
ruined by a couple of individuals. In the case of Gatwick, we listed it on AnyBuild, and it was literally like about an hour or two, and it was straight up on piracy sites, and that was just so
That must be really demoralizing. That
yeah.
honestly.
yeah, it's like well, it's up there now. Can't do anything about it. Um,
By
there
the
Yeah.
is
way, I'm just going to say this right now. We are going to draw the winner of our free giveaway of a legal
oh,
copy of Origami Gatwick later in the stream. Do stay tuned for that. And
Yeah.
as well, if you are just tuning in, because a lot of people are asking, this is Delaney from Origami Studios. He made Gatwick and also is one of the creators of the Bulldog. Just asking him some questions, and currently we're going to talk about the issue of piracy in the flight sim community as a whole, following WF Scenery Studio deciding to stop development of new products last week.
mhm.
And from there, I think it's good. FS Labs took a particularly interesting approach to DRM.
Oh, we're going to talk about this.
Do you think
Does
DRM is
DRM,
particularly...
well, does it belong in flight sim?
Well,
That's a
that's a
tough
tricky one.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's two approaches you can take from this. You can either take the consumer side, and from a consumer side, it is annoying. I do understand that, but then you have to also take the developer side, and if you're spending, again 4 or 5 figures on these things, and it's just been taken, the
Mm,
case for DRM is pretty strong. Now, that's not
Sure.
exonerating particular
Yeah.
companies and their practices.
Yeah. I think
As I can
especially
see
with
going on.
small individual studios like yourself, it's just
Mm,
you, and you're not going to become a millionaire off these things. It's just to, um, pay you back for the hundreds,
mhm,
thousands of hours work and costs that you've put into it
mhm,
yourself, because it'd be impossible to do that for free if you're spending so much on each scenery.
I should
yeah,
also
yeah,
just say as well, people are mentioning in the chat about having serial keys. It's not as easy as that for Explain, because Explain is designed to be lifted up, isn't it? And you can move it round. It's all self-contained, so you don't have
yeah.
registry keys like you do in P3D.
Yeah.
So do you
Even
think...
that
So
still
the reason
confuses me.
Go on.
the reason why you don't see DRM in sceneries is the the only things that can really be protected right now in Explain are plugins. And that's where the problem comes from, because there's just absolutely zero protection for objects. So it's literally just drag, drop, and you've got it. Right. And I've seen
Yeah.
some sceneries do DRM, but it's normally tied into some sort of plugin system. So you lose that functionality. So
So
yeah,
it's not an easy thing to implement.
no, not at all. Not at all. And I think it is something that Laminar should address in future.
Yeah.
Do you
I
think?
guess with Microsoft Flight Sim and the in-game store, it's probably, I mean, obviously I wouldn't know, but I don't imagine it's particularly easy to pirate or share copies of purchased products from there. So maybe in Explain 12 or something, there might be something similar. But then again, I think it's nice to be able to distribute products outside of one store. It's nice to have a store in game in Microsoft Flight Sim, but equally, it's nice that we're on PC, that we can go into the files ourselves and fiddle with it and I was going to say twerk. What am I thinking? And tweak things to our
I've got them
to our
all. This is
liking.
explicit
And
There's
now.
there's a case of both, though, isn't there? So
yeah,
the inbuilt store in Microsoft Flight Sim is really fantastic, and that is going to be its biggest strength for the years to come. Really, just having everything all inclusive in one area from one trusted vendor, Microsoft, whose quality control checking all this content. Is just absolutely fantastic, and something I'd love to see and explain personally. But who knows?
What, like a explain marketplace? I think that
Yeah,
would
I think
be
they should totally do that.
the. Do you think legacy products would be impacted by any sort of future anti-piracy protection that would be introduced?
What if Lamina were to
Yeah,
impose a DR? What they probably just wouldn't have the DRM, I think, which is period.
yeah.
So if they want to opt into that scheme, they'd have to update their scenery.
Um, would you say it's one of the big? Well, we sort of like talked about this, but do you think with lowering of prices that we've seen from MSFS, because
Mhm,
a lot of discussion I've heard in the community before have said every time it's buying an airport, it's 20, 30 euros a pop.
mhm.
Do you think the high price of scenery products? I know your Origami Gatwick is very reasonably priced in comparison to those products I'm mentioning there, but
Mhm.
do you think that the price of products potentially encourages more of these sort of behaviours?
Um, I, I can't, I'm not sure. There was an interesting YouTube video discussing like the value of a product and how people behave when they don't really see the value of that product. So if it's more, you have to also take into account like it might not just be the pricing as well. It could be just your local currency. I've seen exchange rates where they're just through the roof for flights and products. So something that's as simple as maybe like 15 or 20 quid for you and I might
Hmm.
be in the regions of like maybe 30 or the equivalent of 30-40 pounds for
yeah,
someone in another country where minimum wages 4 6 quid. It's not feasible for them. So
Hmm.
that's not an excuse for piracy, but there is also that kind of regionality factor and different mentalities that go into why people might pirate. um
I've got to admit, I
and
do
that,
try and save buying sceneries until the US dollar goes down or the or the euro goes
yeah,
down, and that's when because obviously Twitch only give you in dollars.
Mhm,
yeah. Well, it's interesting with flight sim being a global thing. You're getting things in euros and dollars and stuff, but
mm,
um, yeah. So it's not really something I think about too much. But I guess for people in certain parts of the world, things just must cost so much more, which may be
yeah.
why they go to alternative
Mm.
methods.
I,
Um,
ha- I have seen legal avenues to try and tackle that. I think I've seen I guess regional vendors and those vendors trying to lower the price down, but
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something should be done there. I think I just don't know how.
Yeah,
Um,
it's difficult. I guess it's on the
mm,
shoulders of Laminar for Explain because until they make it possible to protect the files, it's
mhm,
like impossible to stop it.
yeah,
Because Google Drive and well, no, Google I imagine is quite good at taking down things illegal, but there's always going to be a website out there where you can share files, and
yeah.
it's just crazy.
Do you think that distributors like AnyBuild you use for your products, SimMarket, Orvex, are also a potential way to stop this sort of behaviour by making it easier for people to obtain products legally?
I think having it all inclusive into like one store, one vendor is certainly easier for users and can make things more accessible. So they can only be a really good thing. And when you have a variety of vendors to choose from, that's choice for you as the consumer, really.
Yeah,
That being said, we're only in Oregon, any builds at the moment, purely because I just love the team and I believe in their vision, and they've been really great with their approach to
yeah,
um, consumer kind of interactions and feedback. So
yeah.
I've got a
And I
bit.
guess they help you as well because they have a particularly wide in the Explain community, a quite wide audience, a lot of
mhm,
attention that your scenery must get just from being on
yeah,
their site, and it helps you out because it must be as a first time developer of scenery trying to get people
yeah,
to buy your thing. Having the backing of a larger organization like AnyBuilds must be extremely helpful for making people trust you before they hand over their hard-earned cash,
MJ and the
basically.
team have been just fantastic, honestly, with Origami, and
Yeah,
yeah, I'm really pleased with what they've done. So
So we were talking about before we went live about your other work in flight simulation because Delaney has not just made origami products. Well, do you want to tell us a bit about your other work outside of origami?
Sure. So, right when I started off in Explain, I started off doing like freeware liveries. That's that was actually a good bridge into getting into into the developing side, because once you learn about textures and stuff
Hmm.
like that in Explain, you go on to start exploring the model side, and then before you know it, you're just doing scenery
yeah,
and,
You
and
dive in,
aircraft.
don't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The other side I do as well is I do marketing and graphic design for FlyJSim, so I help them out. So I'm very involved with the likes of like the Q4XP and the newer versions of the 732 and the 727 and future products. So it's been really fun to delve into it and just learn a bit more, and getting a new perspective, because
Hmm.
Jack deals with airliners, which is a completely different breed of aircraft, and having to treat that differently, and the accuracy in his simulations. It's really interesting. So
Do you feel that in the future, actually, I think Tom's already asked this one, about not just making airport sceneries, but like city add-ons like Orbix do their cityscapes?
mhm.
Do you see yourself potentially getting interested in doing stuff like that in the future? Or mainly
um
just staying on airports?
I mean, it's a possibility. The problem is time, because the cities are substantially more expensive than airports are. Airports, you're only dealing with maybe like a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer region.
yeah,
Sceneries, cities might cover just entire land masses, and you have to do buildings for all of them.
yeah,
So
If you're doing Singapore, you're making a whole country.
yeah, essentially, yeah.
yeah. And I guess with airports, you're going to be actually up close and personal with the airport, whereas with the city, you're just going to be seeing it from a distance.
hmm
So I think as a simmer on P3D at least, and we don't have the best city scenery aside from like True Earth, which is sort of kind of there. We don't really have much for city scenery, so I definitely think it's
Hey,
nicer, more important for me at least, for to have nice looking airports.
hmm
Um, But I
I
guess
will
that's
admit for
personal
me,
preference.
P3D has certainly, from when P3D and Explain in the recent years, we've seen a lot of improvement on what can be done with the areas surrounding airports. Fly Tampa Vegas, I think, is one of the best examples of that, where you've just got the city done as well.
Vegas and Dubai, I think, from Fly Tampa are really good examples of how you can do the airport and the stuff surrounding region really, really nicely.
Yeah.
Shame you can't do that with Crawley.
Well, I don't think anyone will mind about Crawley not being there in massively high detail.
One day.
Should we get to the moment that everyone's been waiting for?
Free scenery.
Legal. After this discussion.
Yeah. I guess so. Alex, how would you like to draw the winner?
So, unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to do anything other than me
pressing
the button on Gleam, which is still a website I hate, but it was the only way I could make Twitter work.
So, drum roll, please.
Delaney, would you like to announce the winner?
Oh, where is this?
This is in the group chat. As you can tell, this is very well planned.
I'm going to have to get my best voice on.
Are you ready?
Let's get ready to rumble.
Okay.
I won't be doing that again.
Hey,
and the winner
PJ and Duncan called. They want you on Saturday night takeaway.
Oh my.
Boy.
Star guest announcer. Right.
Right, so the winner is...
Drum roll, please.
I apologize for Bulldog's his name. Fryronics.
Fryronics is the winner of Origami Gatwick. I'm just going to say, if you are watching now, and you're wondering, why can't I enter? We did say it was closing before we went live.
Yeah, so if you missed last week's episode, then you wouldn't have known about it. So make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date.
Yep.
But yes, Fryronics, I'm sure Alex will email you shortly with
I will find
details.
A way. Congratulations. Enjoy your Gatwick.
Excellent. Right,
breaking
I guess I guess we'll move on to Flight Factor, Alex. You want to talk about the
Flight Factor. So
787.
Flight Factor, you are an X-Plane scenery developer. So they're not an X-Plane scenery developer. This is how much we've been talking about scenery. And they make planes for X-Plane. They made the A320. They made the A3... No, they didn't make any more A3 something. No, they did make the A350, which had no stars or stars for 2 years. They made a triple. I think they made the 767.
Yep.
And 757. I'm just trying to list all that. But anyway, they are working now on a 787 Pro. Now, we were doing some research before this. And to be honest, a lot of comments I got was another product.
Well, it's crazy how much they do
finished.
now.
It's quite the portfolio.
Yeah.
So, Airbus and Boeing and big ones and small ones and all over the place. A release every other week, it feels like.
And they seem... The thing about Flight Factor is Katie was talking to me. Katie is making a series reviewing all the A320s available. And she was saying that there was a display on the PFD which said the V1 in op.
Yeah.
On the Flight Factor. Which doesn't exist in the real plane.
Yeah.
Is this for the 320 or 350? Sorry.
320, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it's just something you have to be aware about. I don't know how much they charge for the A320.
I will have a check.
It's not nothing. Yeah, £70 or £80.
But I remember a lot of people saying this was going to beat the FS Labs. I think you were saying...
I was speaking to some of my friends. When it first released, everyone was really excited about it and going absolutely mad. And now people are like, the tallest 319 is better and it's probably worth avoiding it. Which is disappointing because...
it's $90.
Yeah.
It costs
not
more than the
cheap.
quality wings. And
Yeah. I think having a good A320 in a sim is
but
nice. We've got it in P3D. We're
the
getting there
question,
in MSFS, but not quite in X-Plane.
the question is, will this 787 be a product that is flyable? So they will have SIDS and stars in there this time.
Yeah.
From the start.
Yeah.
Will it be, or will it be released too early? Dare I say, will it be released too early again? Potentially giving people a product that isn't basically paying people pay to be beta testers.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really mind if they released it early, but as long as they actually finish it in the end, that would be a nice
Open
thing to
access
do.
exists on Steam for years. Like
Yeah.
it's not a new thing. But Delaney, we just wanted to ask, what from your point of view makes a scenery finished or
Scenery.
a product finished? What would you
That's
say?
very good. That's a good question because the situation changes from scenery to aircraft, right? When you
Yeah.
feel to a certain level that like the comprehensive DNA of that product that should be in there is in there, then it should be released, which is really hard because it's
Not as
it really is
fine line with
it's a
the scenery.
subjective thing. Yeah, because people's ideas of what is finished it's so off the ball. You know, it's
Yeah.
like trying to ask someone, what do you consider study level, and you just get into a flurry of discussion. So
Yeah.
I
Especially with aircraft.
yeah,
Like, some people don't care if it doesn't have SIDS and stars, and they might consider it finished and perfectly flyable after that.
Who
But,
are these people?
well, they're out there, evidently.
if it's an
Otherwise,
aircraft, I think operationally everything should be there. You know, from a basic standpoint, I should be able to fly an A to B flight without no errors. At least that's the
yeah.
bare minimum I expect.
I
from
mean,
putting my money down.
even the FS Labs doesn't have everything in yet. There is still the offset feature still isn't there as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
But the key thing is it has to have that spirit, like I think Delaney's saying. Have the spirit of the aircraft there. It doesn't have to be totally finished. The aircraft can be updated, and often it is. But the thing is with the Flight Factor 787, Magnite, although I am aware some in the community don't necessarily view their products as flyable, it's still being worked on.
Yeah.
And there is that competition there. So to that extent,
Well, I mean, I don't own either, so I can't compare between two 787s, one that doesn't exist yet and one that I don't own. But
Yeah.
I do know in the case of Flight Factor, I think maybe things need to put in perspective. That 777 is the 777 and A350 is so old, and relative to when they were released for their time, were really stunning products. They haven't aged as well, but then there's the case that okay, they should be updated. Now, the other excuse for Flight Factor being they're done by different teams, so what you see as lack of progress on one side might be considered as okay, these are parallel projects being worked on at different times, and then not one doesn't impact the other. So in my opinion, I think you'll see a lot of stuff from the 787 downported to the 777 just because they're going to be so inherently similar.
Technically very similar in a way that they are so close they have the same type rating.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of modeling stuff that they're putting on Twitter, which looks really good, by the way. Flight Factor, I must say. So things like the cabin, and they outright stating that look, we're developing this for the 787 and future aircraft to come. So now, but I can't sit here and defend Flight Factor or anyone if they have something buggy. It's just the same way that no one could defend me if I release something buggy. That it should be fixed if you're or updated to represent a more accurate rendition.
Yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had about developing things that are already kind of there, because I know you mentioned like you were developing Gatwick even though you had UK 2000 and Pilot Plus, but you wanted to go beyond that, and surely with Flight Factor they look at the Magnite and think we can do a better job than that. So that's why we're doing it. But some people, certainly in the scenery world, because there's, like you said, 24,000 airports, and we only get a handful of them in flight sim, get not irritated but disheartened that now in P3D at least we have like 4 Madrid sceneries or something, and all of them are kind of good enough.
And then Heathrow is left behind.
I know.
Yeah. And it'd be nice to see some more variety, but then again, it's difficult for developers, because if you develop a scenery in the middle of nowhere that's got no routes, then who really wants to fly there? People like flying to major airports, so it's a fine line to balance kind of thing.
Orbex. A lot of Orbex airports I hadn't really heard of before. Even in Europe, I hadn't heard of before they made them.
Yeah.
You know what's
It's a fair
actually
point.
disappointing me is that I think the variety of Orbex airports in P3D is so much more diverse than what we currently have in X-Plane. I would love to see some of that portfolio ported over. You know, I want to fly.
I think it's
Norway.
disappointing.
Yeah,
If we're going to be looking at the new roadmap later
They
as
have
well.
a lot of stuff for P3D, but the X-Plane store on Orbex is like a fraction of the size of what they have for P3D, and they have ported some of their sceneries from P3D to X-Plane, and just kind of makes me think, what's stopping them from porting the rest of them? It can't be an easy process, but if you've got the models, I mean, I don't speak from a development perspective, but I just wonder why they're not doing it, basically. So
could be time and resources as well.
Yeah.
I was looking at that. Well, I'll let you do the roadmap before I get to it. So I'll hold my thoughts.
Well, actually, you know what? Let's go on to the roadmap. I think, why not?
Sure.
This would have made where we have to get our notes up.
Yeah, you didn't even put a link to the roadmap in the notes.
I will link it really quickly.
I've got it up now.
Yeah. So one of the things just carrying on from that, was that apparently it's easier to port a product from P3D to MSFS or X-Plane to MSFS than it is from P3D to X-Plane.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like I said, I don't have much. I'm not a developer, but they have done it before, so it just makes me think. I don't know if Gaia Simulations with their sceneries, like I think Edinburgh, that's in X-Plane, isn't it? Yeah. Like, I wonder if they developed those kind of like they did a model for X-Plane and a model for P3D, but it would seem strange to do that.
There are some cases where they might be a little bit different. So if we're taking, in the case of X-Plane and MFS actually has some material and UV properties. UV being like how your model is unwrapped in a 2D space, kind of like an origami. Haha. So
that's one of the best jokes I've heard on this podcast ever.
Yeah, not scripted. No.
But in the case like glass textures, so if you look at MFS and you see like you can see inside the windows and such, you don't have that material on X-Plane, so that might be a good reason to separate it. You can fit more of a model onto like multiple UV maps as well. So, and that's the same case for aircraft as well. So a model's a model, but there are some slight quirks that have to be adapted between X-Plane and MFS, and I guess even P3D as well, because the difference between P3D and MFS in those tools is rather substantial.
Yeah. So Orbex, they are actually porting some airports.
So a lot of the initial releases for MSFS were ports, and a London landmark. Some people made that very well known that they were ports. There were a few bugs initially with them. But I believe these landmark packs we are seeing now are entirely new developments for MSFS.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Melbourne, we've got Cape Town, Dubai, Frankfurt, Mumbai. There's so many interesting places here, to be honest.
I never thought I'd see a Mumbai city pack. That's really interesting.
Mumbai, the Panama Canal, Yokohama, Cityscape Sydney for P3D. There's a lot of new places coming out. But these are all $10 a pop.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a terrible price, I don't think. And especially with Orbex, they have sales every other day. I will keep an eye on them, I guess. I'm more excited about the new airports for P3 and X-Plane. They're porting Burbank to X-Plane. Olbia is coming to X-Plane.
Olbia is so nice. Prague is being redeveloped. This again comes back to that whole issue
Prague
of...
is new, isn't it? Well, Prague
so
from
Prague
Orbex is new.
Prague has already been developed by Aerosoft, and from what I'm aware, it's actually quite a decent Aerosoft product.
It's all right. Yeah, I think I got it for £5 in a stay-at-home sale. I wouldn't say it's too bad, apart from they have a really weird system as an alternative to Sode, which is really strange, and I don't like it. But other than that, the textures and modelling is not bad.
Is apparently a port from P3D. It doesn't really work. Well, I mean, come on, MK Studios Dublin. You've just got it is just the choice now. I think that's the thing with a lot of sceneries where there's two developers. One becomes, for a lot of the community, the natural choice. Like UK again with Heathrow. Sorry guys, I just love Heathrow. You've got UK 2000 and Aerosoft have made a product for Heathrow, and the Aerosoft product is objectively better, and it's also a bit more up to date with how the airport actually is. Likewise with Dublin, the Aerosoft product is not the best there. It's probably MK Studios. MK do a lot of really good scenery.
I mean, what MK I notice about them is their scenery is so well optimized. Delaney, you were talking about it earlier, that it's a whole process of the development cycle, optimizing your scenery so the frame rates are actually decent. I think MK Studios do a crazy job with that. Like, this is another kind of question. How do you actually optimize a scenery? Do you have to remove things or downscale things? Like, how do you save the frames?
Yeah, so there's actually a variety of techniques, and some of them I learned from other developers as well. So it could be just trying to keep a low poly count. It could be trying to sacrifice hard geometry with material detail and kind of disguising that. It could be instancing. Instancing is when you kind of throw one object at the GPU and say, I want this replicated like 1,000 times. So there's that. There's the size of your the textures as well. So and if you have PBR or not. So in the case of X-Plane, PBR is quite an intensive process to put the engine through. So try and put it where relevant.
Do you think Vulkan changed a lot of the how to optimize scenery for you guys in X-Plane?
I think yes, or not just Vulkan, 1150 in general, and I believe it's a stepping stone to a lot of greater things coming for the future. Because Vulkan is not a dead end, contrary to belief. I think people think, okay, Vulkan's out, that's it. X-Plane can't get any more optimized than this. Wrong. It's gonna get more so than what it is currently. And I think it also educates developers as to how we can optimize our stuff better. Laminar literally gave us tools, a micro profiler and a VRAM profiler, to say like your scenery is using this. Try and reduce it. So
I mean, I think with P3D as well, with the move to DirectX 12 in V5, some developers are still finding that a bit of a challenge with the introduction, because we got rid of RAM as a way of crashing your sim with your running out of VAS space. Remember those days, honestly, where you struggled to fly from Heathrow with the FS Labs without running out of memory. And then, hang on, Tom, are you there?
Oh, I think he's back.
Sorry, yeah, I've been having issues with my Discord all evening. It's disconnected me from the call like 3 times, but sorry, I'm back. I've been listening on YouTube, so I know what you're saying, but I couldn't reply. Yeah. It feels a bit like a step backwards having to worry about VRAM in V5, but I do think it's worth it for the performance gain we get with DirectX 12. First day I had with P3D V5, I was like, oh my goodness, 60 FPS, FS Labs, Heathrow? What's going on right now? It feels insane, but yeah.
I mean, I think the thing is, DirectX 12 transfers a lot of resource management, whereas DirectX 11 you could just throw anything you wanted in, it would just make the sim run really slow.
Just out of curiosity, and sorry to reverse this, but do you
No.
feel V5 is worth it? Because I'm still currently on V4. I never bothered to make the change because all I saw was volumetric clouds.
Yeah.
So do you
I've got
consider
those
that?
turned off.
Oh.
Well, yeah.
True Sky
I think it depends on your system. Yeah, I don't think True Sky is a great feature for V5. I
Mhm.
think the main reason I like V5 over V4 now is the performance gain you get from it. But you have to be careful. Depends what GPU you have. If you have less than like 6
gig.
gigabytes of VRAM, yeah, 8 would probably be a good amount. 6 is kind of like minimum if you want to have a smooth experience. But yeah, so I'd say if you have 8 gigabytes or 6 and you want to run on reduced settings, then it's worth the upgrade because the FPS is a million times better. And I, similarly to Alex, I turn off enhanced atmospherics. I don't even run HDR in my sim anymore. So my sim basically looks identical. My V5 looks identical to my V4, just with higher FPS and a few DXGI errors every few hours. Well, luckily I've optimized my sim a bit, so that doesn't happen so much.
But even with the DXGI errors, a lot of those were largely because the sim was itself. Even for Lockheed, it was moving to DirectX 12, where Microsoft hardly do any allocation for you anymore. It's multi-core.
Yeah.
It's you manage your own memory. It's not just like, here's your memory, we'll manage it for you. It is genuinely a lot more complex as a development environment, from what I understand.
Yeah.
But if you optimize your product, well, I think a product that really benefited from V5 was the FS Labs, and that's continued. Every update now, I seem to get better performance with the FS Labs.
Yeah, and every update with P3D as well.
Right.
It's good to see.
I think this sort
but
of
I don't know
goes-
any of the technical aspects. I think it's magical that we can just have some engine upgrade and magically everything runs literally twice as fast. So
I mean,
hopefully the same
things-
happens again next year.
I mean, there are some things that are still missing. So, for example, if you use GSX and you like have BAD handling, you'll not see any BA branding because they've not figured out a way to implement that in DirectX 12.
Yeah, there's a few things like the GSX refueling truck in V4 used to have the cost and the number of liters on the side, and you could look at the screen, but that's not in DirectX 12 yet. But for the most part, I would say what you lose is nothing compared to what you gain. Yeah, exactly. So I'd probably say it's worth it.
So anyway, I think we got completely sidetracked from Orbex.
No, but that's a good conversation. I like it.
That genuinely was. So I think we should just cover Orbex really quickly. So they got Boys International. Well, I'm not sure where that is. Where is that?
I have no idea.
Idaho.
American.
Well, I think this is the thing we were talking about earlier. Orbex sort of broadened your horizons with their sceneries.
Yeah, they do.
I've got to be honest.
I think there's a VATSIM division there, probably, and probably no one flies to that airport, and they'll be very happy to see that.
One of the streamers I watch, Merides, I have a complete reluctance to fly anywhere in P3D without either a BA route or a nice scenery. And
Don't blame you.
Only because my loyalty to BAV seems like loyalty to a higher power. But
BAV forever. British
she controls in Detroit, which hasn't really had any scenery made for it. But if Orbex ever made a Detroit's one of those places that has undergone a lot of change in recent years. And I feel like having a scenery made, especially a good scenery, puts an airport on the map. And so like Harden with the Beluga. Harden came with a freeware scenery,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now,
Was that $0 payware that did that?
It
That-
was, yeah.
yeah,
I'm quite glad about that. It's a cool little airport, Chester.
it also makes your Liverpool radar training
Yeah,
a
it
lot
does.
more fun.
That is the reason why I like it, because
I
when I
th-
control
I think
Liverpool radar.
I think why I like it so much is it brings a level of interaction that I haven't really seen since Memphis FS Dream Team, where the airport is actually somewhat interactable with the aircraft, right? And that's really cool, And they're
Yeah,
doing
the
this for free.
doors.
It's like, yeah. So
Yeah,
I really commend $0 payware for that, honestly.
yeah, that's crazy. Very
And
nice
I
stuff.
think the whole thing is airports. Like, I don't think. Dare I say, with the Beluga, I think the Beluga is unique in a way. It will make people fly to Bremen. It will make people fly to Toulouse.
Mhm.
Make people fly to Gatwick for some reason. That's. But
Hmm.
the whole point is, it makes people explore airports they probably wouldn't go to an Air A320. And I think a lot of the things we see in scenery, a lot of things we see in the sim is a lot of airports that are popular are the ones with sceneries.
Mhm.
Well, it makes sense, especially with P3D and FSX. The default airport scenery was like just you couldn't even fly on that sim because the taxiways don't match up.
So you
But
say that.
maybe with MSFS,
Hmm.
things will improve because the default scenery is not terrible and outdated. And
think
for
a lot of
X-Plane, you've got
people-
literally a freeware scenery for pretty much anywhere you can just find something. It might not be amazing, but there's because of the ease of development or the accessibility of development for X-Plane, you can at least find someone who's had a crack at it,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Tom, I've got some bad news for you, by the way.
What's the bad news?
This time last week, you made a
Oh,
promise. On the
no, I
internet.
didn't.
You did. So,
I didn't.
Tom last week said the FS Labs Sharklets would be released by now.
Uh-oh. Did
And
you
if
wager
they
anything,
weren't-
Tom?
If anyone's been keeping up with this episode, there has been no Sharklets mentioned at all. So therefore, Tom was wrong on the internet.
Yeah, that's never happened before.
And then he will therefore, I wouldn't say pay the price because Explain is a very nice sim, and I think you are not doing it disservice. Even though I only use it for tower views, but that's besides the point. So,
Yeah.
guys, you will be seeing a stream in Explain 11. I think you should fly from Origami Gatwick. I'm just saying. It is
Maybe
really
I
nice
will.
scenery.
I'll
You
pick it
will.
up. Yeah. I mean, it's a good airport.
And so you're going to be seeing a stream by Tom in Explain. Also, a chance for me to.
If it releases tonight, I'm going to be really annoyed, or like tomorrow morning or something. But yes, I'll get X-Plane out of the cupboard and
Just
wipe the
dust it off.
dust off. Yeah.
It's also time for me to just say something. Next week, I am probably going to be really tired in next week's episode. There is a reason for that. I hit 2,000 followers on Twitch somehow. I don't know how that happened, honestly. But what's going to happen? And Tom hit 3K, but I'm being more adventurous with my challenge, shall I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am doing 20-hour charity live stream on Friday into Saturday. And honestly, this is the thing I love about the Flight Sim community. It's so supportive. Because I looked at the Just Giving page before we... I woke up to an email on Sunday.
Spit it out, Alex. What's going
Friday,
on?
Saturday morning, I don't know.
Yeah.
And someone dropped £100 in support of the stream. It's for Mind.
Crazy
But
stuff.
like honestly, I can't believe the generosity. Even though we've been discussing some rather dark sides of the community, I think it should be mentioned as well. The community is also rather generous as well. And I think that's one of the things as a community we should all be proud of. But yeah, Friday at 12 o'clock UK time, 11 Zulu, I commit myself to the internet for 20 hours, which can only go wrong.
Is that the sellout over?
That is the sellout over. I think it's time for quick bits, isn't it? But there is nothing like I'll be honest, there's been nothing happening in Flight Sim this week. Well,
there was the FS Labs teaser, wasn't there?
there was the FS
Yeah.
Labs teaser, but we covered that. We covered all the stuff last week.
Oh no.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. We ran out of things.
It's okay. Do you
That
know
is
where we can
okay.
now fly? You can now fly to Cornwall in MSFS soon. Perranporth by Aerosoft. It's been developed by Starport Sceneries.
Ooh.
And it's a very nice GA. It actually looks quite nice on these previews. I'm going to just get them up on the screen really quickly. How do I do that again? The moment when you forget how to do your own stream.
Slightly off topic, but I don't know if you've seen, there was a video by Flight Sim Deck, and I think he went gliding around the Skerries, and the scenery for that was just absolutely amazing.
What sim was that in?
MFS. I'll try and find the link for it, actually.
I haven't seen that. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
But there is the Starport
I didn't even know there was a glider for Microsoft Flight Sim. That's quite interesting, actually.
There
I'll
is the
have to look at that.
Starport scenery for MSFS. Being previewed. It's on its way. There is a QuickBits article which actually might be bigger than a QuickBit. There's an airport in Moldova that's been released as well. It really has been a slow news week, hasn't it? It's this is actually quite big. Happened today. There's been an update for the MD 500E helicopter in X-Plane. Now, anyone who watches my streams knows how much I love helicopters on Heathrow Director. I remember on stream, I just got kamikazed by loads of people flying them in at the end of the stream. I was like, oh, that's fun. But they are really fun to deal with, and they are interesting from your normal IFR stuff. So Cowan Sim is a new developer in the community, and they have developed the MD500. I'm not really sure about the helicopter specifics, unfortunately. But it's something I want to try out. I feel like I need to try helicopter flying.
Well, I'm actually really impressed. There's a freeware helicopter on Flight Sim 2 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I got it a few weeks ago, but it had an update quite recently, and it's actually moving along so quickly. I don't think it's like open source or anything, but it's crazy how the Microsoft Flight Sim developers are moving so quickly, and it's good to see things advancing, particularly with helicopters, because I know there's a whole different community within Flight Sim, like a subset who are really into helicopters.
I think Dave, who's watching us now, and it's in my stream a lot, would love to see me flying try to fly a chopper.
Yeah, very different to a
very
aircraft.
Different to
arguably harder to fly. Sorry,
oh, no,
it is an aircraft. Arguably harder to fly than a piston plane or an Airbus.
There was also
of some sort.
a preview of the BAE 146 Professional for X-Plane. So this is a conversion from Just Flight of their P3D version. So in X-Plane, you'll soon be able to fly an RJ100.
I'm really excited for that one.
And to be honest, London City will be interesting that week when everyone tries. You know that landing video?
Yeah, the really approach. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the one that I think Swiss 001 memed it.
Oh dear.
And it was what was it? Right. It was basically when they introduced the CS100s to Swiss, and they had a British narrating RJ, and it went, let's say I've had better landings elsewhere, and then immediately proceeded to show the RJ crashing into city. Well, not crashing, a very, very hard landing with a bounce. But at least it stopped on the runway, unlike some of my landings at times. Right.
Yeah. I think that's we've got two more things to talk about. Oh, there's
there is
one
two
more thing,
things.
Alex. Yeah, there's two more things.
Yeah.
But I don't think
FSA strikes again.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Delaney wants to stay on to talk about Flight Sim Association. I don't know if you have anything to say about it, but
Have you been offered on Flight Sim Association?
Well, it was part of AnyBuild, and yeah, I don't
that's
really
not a
have
thing
much to
anymore,
say.
is it?
Exactly. So I don't really have anything to say about that.
Sure.
So, the timing. So something big is coming. Something that arguably might be bigger than something big is coming was Flight Sim Expo, which is made by the same people as didn't say us, but then I was like, nope, that's definitely nothing to do with us. Flight Sim Association has been postponed until September this year.
You mean Flight Sim Expo?
Yeah, Flight Sim Expo.
Not Flight Sim Association.
Just postponed the website.
Yeah, so Flight Sim Expo, unsurprisingly, looks like it might be cancelled.
It's
Or
only
postponed,
at
or
the
there won't
moment.
be anyone going to it, or but that's unfortunate. But it could be that the guys who run it, the Boston VACC people, and well, FSA, FS Expo,
They're all interlinked.
BVAI, FLAI, BVACC, whatever it is, BVARTCC, all linked. Perhaps
Let's go
they're
through acronyms.
cross-subsidizing slightly. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it could say that, I don't know. There's not a huge amount we can infer. We could just guess that perhaps it was rushed to help save them from their lost revenue from no Flight Sim Expo, but
we're interested to
it'll be
see what
impossible to know.
FSA is going to bring in the next few weeks to the community. And hey, if they want to come on and prove me and Tom wrong about this, here's your open invite. I've not got to send this out after. But come on, sell it to me and Tom. We can fit you in any of the podcasts in the next few weeks. Sell it. Because I genuinely think there is actually room, but I just think at the moment the current presentation of the product is not there to actually make people want it. That felt very Piers Morgan like. That standoff. Anyway, speaking of Piers Morgan, now time for a Rifty rant on well, do you want to tell everyone what it is?
Sure, yeah. So, last thing from me to talk about this week, Cross the Pond. I'm a big fan of Cross the Pond, I can't lie. I know some people aren't massive fans of Cross the Pond because of how many people there are, and they don't like flying when it's extremely busy, but I think it's cool to have a opportunity twice a year to fly in massive groups on VATSIM, where you're over the ocean every direction you look, up, down, left, right, behind you, in front of you. There's just aircraft everywhere. I think it's a fantastic event, which is why I like to fly across the pond. And historically, I've flown across the pond since like 2019, beginning of, I think. I've flown across the pond like every event except for the last one, I want to say. But the reason for that is because they've moved to a new slot system for this last event and for this event this year. So previously, if you're familiar, how it would work was they would release slots at a certain time. So say, for example, they might say at 1100 Zulu on this day, we're going to release all the departure slots for Amsterdam. And then you would log on to the website and get your slots. But the new system is called a lottery system. And the reason for that is because now the system is that you basically register interest in what city pairs you want to do. And then they have a system that just randomly sort of assigns slots. Well, not randomly, but it has some weightings to... essentially, the system is if you've not showed up for a slot previously, you're slightly negatively weighted. And if you've not been selected in the past, then you're more likely to be selected this time. And and it's there's positives and negatives to every system, but I just think that the new system is more negative than positive in relation to the system we had before. And I think it's evidenced by the fact that there's fewer and fewer people flying across the pond. Like in the last event, VATSIM had seen a explosion in members from the publicity of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and yet there were fewer. Normally cross the pond is the event where we break the record for the number of
I think
connections
we
to
did break a
VATSIM.
record, though.
Not in the latest event, but the event before that, I believe we did.
But I think that was the reason why the system changed. Because speaking as a controller here,
They didn't like it.
No, it's always known that Heathrow will get rammed across the pond. It's always known that a UK airport will be absolutely shafted.
Yeah.
It's the only one, really.
Yeah, but that's kind of part of the fun.
There's two this year.
Not. Yeah, it's a tough one for controllers because I know it's difficult for VATSIM. They say every year, if you don't have a slot, please don't fly. However, we can't stop you from flying. So if you really want to, you kind of can.
They've started not providing any ATC to anyone who flies non-event.
Yeah, but it's not like you can just spawn in at Heathrow and not talk to ATC, is it? I think they should either just say, if you're flying out of Heathrow on this day, you have to have a slot and you can't fly to a non-event airport, whatever. They could do that, but they choose not to. They just make it advised.
One of the things that VATSIM has improved on, VATSIM UK in particular, and I don't give them credit often, but they deserve credit for this.
No. In general, I do think very positively about VATSIM UK.
They have improved flow control massively.
Yeah.
And like Gatwick Midweek Madness is a lot more rammed than the real world gets. But they keep it going. And the flow control does work. You may have noticed if you fly from airports close to the UK, you'll be delayed a bit. But VATSIM is starting to put into place those structures to really actually deal delays more competently on the ground rather than just throw a load of planes in the air, hold them en route, and hope for the best, which I feel is something that's very good. But equally, I feel now we've got these improvements of how the actual ATC side's working. At the same time, it's not helping that we are reducing the amount of pilots we're encouraging to fly the event. Cross the Pond madness was partially because everyone under the sun flew for it. And now it's just being reduced, I feel. I do agree with you there, Tom, about lottery not being the best idea. I think that's it.
I'm just really excited for Across the Pond, really. I haven't flown it in about a year.
Tom's now replying, but he's dropped out of the Discord again.
Oh, no.
Or something. So we are just waiting for Tom to return. We've had a few technical issues today. Lainey, have you flown across the pond before?
Yeah, I have actually quite a few times, and the experience varies from each one. The very first time I was kind of scared, bleep. But the following times, I'd go in and out of Toronto quite a bit. I've been out of JFK, Heathrow, Manchester, Amsterdam. They've been really interesting experiences. So I mean, you haven't done Across the Pond. It's sort of like a rite of passage for flight sims, really. Yeah, I'm trying. I've got 3 booked actually. I'm looking at them right now. So I've got London to Heathrow to Linden as one, Oslo to Denver, and then Amsterdam to Washington Dulles. So fingers crossed, I get my choices.
I think Tom is based on his reaction, is having a few technical issues.
He's on a bit of a hotline bling at the moment, isn't he?
He is making his new music video right now. If you are watching the podcast, sorry, you're listening on Spotify later, here is a moment where Tom is proceeding to, I think he's got a pen and paper out now. And I can't wait to see what he writes on it. This is honestly... No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
should end with Jeremy Clarkson, and on that bombshell.
You know what? I will say next week you've got AnyBuilds on. Hopefully. Well, actually, no. I was just speaking to you, Bade, as we speak, as Tom was ranting. AnyBuilds are coming on next week's show. So if you have any questions about the A300, the A310, the Beluga, the other A380, there's a lot of A380s. Yeah, do come along. We'll get the form up shortly, and you'll be back into that. Once again, we apologise that Tom has lost his connection to the outside world. Thank you for watching, and good night.
Bye, everyone.
What really weird doing an outro on my own, but see you soon, guys. Now, if you're on YouTube, this is an exclusive. We're going to stay until we're going to watch Tom try and fix it. If you want, no, we're going to watch Tom try and fix it because I want to see this. Is he gone? Oh, his Discord's not. You know what? Tom, whack me over your. Oh no, my webcam's my phone. This is a slight problem. If you could just see the amazing Ripley transitions. No, I've ended the audio recording, so they can't see this.
Who's they? Twitch or? Oh, I think.
Ooh.
Hang on, is this Mr. Ruskell?
Speak to me, Tom.
I'm back.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm alive. Sorry. Thanks for outroing.
But guys, I've really enjoyed this week's episode, you know?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you
It's
so
good
much for
to-
everyone to watching. Tom has recovered.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really nice chat, actually. And
No, it's been interesting to explaining how that all works.
yeah, you should come over.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the
Well,
stream.
yeah.
Tom will be flying Origami
yeah.
Gatwick.
I'll dip my toes in and see how it goes.
Mhm.
We're going to end the stream on YouTube now. Thank you so
if
much for watching.
If you talk to MJ next week, send my love, by the way. He's a really nice person.
MJ, honestly, I felt
yeah.
really bad with. I'm just going to spoil this right now. I was speaking to Max from AnyBuild when I was trying to sort this out.
Mhm.
And then I thought MJ was Max for some reason, which sort of showed. I felt really, really bad when I did that. But it's all right. This is happening next week. We are seeing AnyBuilds next week, so do join us next week. Might be a change start time because of something that's happening, but we will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube, and goodbye.
Bye.